Hey everyone, thanks for coming in. It's this is Ellie Painted Crow's workshop, and I feel like it's strange because I feel like I need to introduce Ellie, but Ellie, this is your program, and I'm gonna let you take control of it. So, oh, you're still on mute, Ellie.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Garrett. Thank you for Veterans for Peace for allowing to give me this time and space to have shared these thoughts with you. I want to begin by saying that what I'm wanting to share is a point of view, and not everyone may agree with my point of view. And you don't need to. And I respect your point of view, so there doesn't have to be any kind of defending here in this. I'm hoping that we can have a conversation down the road here if somebody has questions or some thoughts, but I really wanted to share a little bit of, I think a lot of you know, I used to be part of Veterans for Peace and was on the board for a minute, and I'm an Iraq veteran. And I retired with 22 years of service. Came out wanting to find a peaceful organization to speak my truth about my experience. And I thought Veterans for Peace was going to be that. And it turned out to be more of what I received from what I endured from my unit in the military. A lot of conflicts and just dismissal for who I am as a soldier, as a woman, as a human being. In some very subtle ways, of course. Nothing was ever really blatant, but it was just a failure to notice during that time. And that's probably been at least 15 years ago. And I've been waiting patiently for Veterans of Peace to take a shift. And I'm really grateful that I have this time to share some of what I've been observing and some insight that might be helpful to Veterans for Peace. I hope someday to come back if I can ever see that it actually is working towards peace. So I want to ask Garrett if he wants to have this conversation with me at some point about sort of what we talked about earlier today. And what I want to bring up, first of all, just thank you all for allowing me this space. What I want to bring up is what I asked for probably last year was your code of conduct rules. And I found it very interesting that your first code of conduct for Veterans for Peace reads, "We will use our anger at injustice as a positive, nonviolent force for change." That was very, set me back when I saw that. And the reason why it set me back was that the word anger is part of the process in here. And so what I really want to talk about is our personal responsibility for peace and how we can share that. And we'll get to that. But this really has stuck with me for like the last 4 days in thinking about that. And Garrett said that you first got that when you first came, this was a new rule thing. And so can you share a little bit about why that became rule number one?
I don't really know why it's rule number one. I wasn't really active during the creation of this document, but I know that it was being demanded at the time by a lot of people that there needed to be very clear guidelines on behavior, because there was a lot of behavioral issues. There were a lot of habits that we had as veterans, and as people that we were violating each other and harming each other. So I know the code of conduct was created because it was felt at the time we needed some clear guidelines of how to behave. Hearing that now and hearing me say that, it sounds ridiculous, and it sounds tragic that we needed it, but I mean, that's the unfortunate truth. And I came into activism from a place of anger. I was mad. I was betrayed, and I was furious. And I came home to fight. Um, and it took me a long time to learn how to organize from a place of love because I didn't want harm done anymore. And in that I felt ashamed of who I was, in my participation in violence. And it took a lot of reflection to get there. And I'm hoping that the rule number one helps trigger some of that transformation faster in some of the folks around. And I hope someday we don't need it.
Yeah, can you share if that's still an issue for Veterans for Peace? Because I'm just wondering, it can move in some different levels or different ways that sometimes it's not right in our face anymore, but it happens in other ways.
It's definitely here. It's definitely around. And I see more. I see this pattern of creating harm on others, feeling disgusted about ourselves, and internalizing that and fighting more and hurting more. And it's just this perpetual cycle that it seems like many of us can't break through an unwillingness to immediately reflect and realize our defensiveness and lower our guard and prepare to receive that information. So yeah, we're continuing to hurt each other, and we come from this weird place of anger when anybody confronts us with faults and flaws that we have.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that, because I think that is probably what affects us as veterans the most, is the ability to actually have the desire to look inside for the various reasons you pointed out: shame, just feeling bad, just realizing what we were a part of after the fact. All of those things are very hurtful to our soul and very hurtful to our mind and very hurtful to our hearts. The only problem with that is that when somebody is afflicted with those kinds of injuries and doesn't take a deep look inside, what happens is that it has to come out somewhere. And if it doesn't come out in anger, it comes out in your body. It comes out in illness. It comes out in disease. It comes out in a lot of ways that people don't really recognize. And I want to talk a little bit about Veterans for Peace, because in terms of what it's been doing for the last however long it's been here, I guess it's been here quite a number of decades, actually. One of the things that I've noticed and I've been noticing is that, we are engaged in a lot of fights, a lot of fights in other places, in other countries, in other things. And what we're not noticing is that there's a big one happening here at home. And we're ignoring that. It's sort of like, if we don't look at our own weaknesses, injuries, and we're out there fighting, we don't have to look at and heal that. But we're doing that with our country. And that our country's falling apart, and it needs to fall apart. But are we prepared to put it back together? Or are we going to let the people who originally designed this country to keep people oppressed, to keep people fighting with each other, to keep people fighting for rights they give you every decade and then take back for another decade, and then you fight again for the same thing? I mean, we never even passed the Women's Equal Rights Amendment thing. That was in the 70s. What happened to that? We just let it go. We stopped. I mean, there's so many things that we get engaged in the small fights, which to us are big fights because it hurts our heart. We felt that, we've been there, we've seen that. And so it becomes huge. However, the thing that we are failing to see is that what we are doing to ourselves, we're also doing to our country, we're also doing to our families, we're also doing to the planet. And until we have a good handle of who we are and the historical wound of this, it's a historical wound that we're all trying to deal with, that's 500 years old or however old this country is. I don't really remember anymore, but the First World War was not World War I. The First World War was the genocide of 60 million indigenous people on this land. Okay, that was the First World War, but we don't even identify it as that because Native people were not seen as being human. We were pestilence, we were bugs, we were whatever, weeds. So it didn't count, and it still doesn't count in our history. That is the First World War. So let's just talk some truth about why we are where we are and how we're fighting is never going to work. Number one, we haven't looked at our own stuff to heal that. So all we can give away is what we got. And that's a lot of anger, comes out because of our shame, because of all the feeling of being, used, abused. We haven't healed it, so we just pass it forward. That's what we're doing. The abuse that we got, we pass it forward with each other because that's familiar. Doesn't mean it's good for us, it just means it's familiar. And until we recognize that and say, okay, I want to engage in this in a more powerful way and not just trying to get through with each other so we can get through the next protest. Because that really, I don't know how many wars we've stopped with protests. We probably slowed them down. We haven't stopped anything because they're going to do what they do. So the other thing to me is that that's the first thing, looking at ourselves, looking at how we need to engage with ourselves, know ourselves, really know ourselves, and know our wounds, and not be the victimizing other people based on our victimization and not staying that victim, because there are ways to move through this. Okay, the second thing is understanding that the system is set up for us to fight with each other. The system is set up for us to take the little battles and not see what the bigger picture is, because it serves us to someone, makes us feel like we did something. I don't do protests anymore because it doesn't make me feel like I did anything really, unless, it's really, really, we'll have a law for 10 years and then they'll take it from us. Big deal. We have the right to vote. Now we're not. Big deal. It's not a new thing. It just goes in circles. So why do we want to go in circles? Why do we want to do that? If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you always got. So do you guys want to keep fighting? Do you want to keep fighting, or do you really want peace? And if you want peace, then that means it has to start with you. How are you peaceful with yourself? How are you kind to yourself? How are you caring for yourself? Because peace requires that all four parts of us are balanced: our mind, our body, our spirit, our emotions, that we have some sort of balance, that we can say, here, you don't know peace? This is what I understand right at this moment of peace. Let me share that with you. Let me be kind. Let me be grateful. Let me be all these things that when you're in anger, you never see. When you're in feeling betrayed, well, it was set up that way. Okay, so I got betrayed. Yeah, I did that for a whole decade. I was pissed off, and I'd get mad. Don't thank me for my service. You have no idea what that means. There's nothing to thank me for, because it wasn't on my behalf. I did it on some guy who told me that this is what I was supposed to do, and I never questioned it until I got there. And I was like, wow, these people look like me, So realize that this is a historical battle. This is not the battle of the last war or the couple of wars before us, or preventing the next war. This is the United States of America was founded on genocide. Okay, so it was a violent country to start when it got built. Those what is it, our Constitution? Our Constitution came from the Iroquois, the Six Nations. That's where they got it from. They didn't come up with that on their own. You can look this up. They did not, our founding fathers did not come up with that on their own. They took it from the nations who were building a bond, and it's actually called the Law of Peace, believe it or not. The Constitution is called the Law of Peace. That was founded by those nations. They didn't call it the Law of Peace because what they did is they used that law to hide how they were going to administratively use this government for their profit, for their benefit, and its people. That's really what happened. They use that Constitution to keep us in check. How many of them are really following that Constitution to today? None of them. How many of them? Why aren't any of them in jail for the millions of people who died because they failed to do their job? If you were in the military and you did something like that and you failed to do your job, even though you knew it and you didn't do it, would you have a consequence? I think so. But yet, they get to do this. They wrote these laws to protect themselves, not us. They wrote that Constitution to keep us thinking that they're there for us. They should have called it the Constitution of Peace, because that's what it was designed to do. They didn't. They used it to hide how they were going to create the system of their money. And only the rich people were part of that. There was no women part of that. There was no Black people part of it. There was no white poor people who were part of creating that whole document and the law surrounding it. It was all done by white males. So do you think they don't want us to vote? Of course not, because we are now the majority. That puts people in fear. That makes people want to do things to keep us oppressed. And for people who can see it, people who are in Veterans for Peace and see it and know it, that is really the bigger conflict that we have right now. You can go fight for other countries that we did, but you know what? They don't care. Until you change the system, until you let it fall and the people step up together and say, we're going to rebuild this, because the right wing and the left wing are on the same bird. They're on the same bird. They help each other. They make it look like a fight so we can fight with each other, but they are really not. You have to remember who founded this, nothing but rich white guys. And that idea, that thinking, is still the majority in there. Even if we have women there now, people of color there, that's a very ingrained system that's affected all these other countries. And you're not just by getting rid of the people gonna get rid of the system, because the system is intact regardless of who's in there. There's always gonna be somebody who's gonna call it, hey, no, that's not how it works here. That's how we like for people to think that it works here, but that's really not how it works here. So I invite Veterans for Peace to really think about what that looks like. What is the responsibility that we have for ourselves, for our communities? If we're fighting for each other, with each other, not for each other, but with each other, what's the point? Tell me what the point is. We can't respect another point of view. We can't sit in the same room together. Your opinion matters less than mine. I mean, what are all, and it's really just an old wound. It's also a lineage wound that science is now saying that, but Native people have always known that. Whoever your ancestors were, they left you with wounds. And if you don't know your ancestors, well, then you should, because you have to heal those. It's part of the reconciliation that has to happen between the colonizer and the system and the people who are affected by it. And it's not blaming your lineage. It's just saying, oh, wow, I just have a friend of mine, honestly, have a friend of mine that says she's a lawyer and she's all for Native, supporting Native work. She just found out one of her friends was, one of her ancestors was part of the Hitler thing. He was a Nazi. So she was freaking out about that. Oh my God, so she's taken 30 days of silence for herself to see what that is about for her, to see what wound she's carrying forward that she doesn't want to carry. To sit with yourself. If you don't know yourself and you're letting other things outside of yourself guide you, then, I don't know what to stand for. I know what to stand against, but anybody can do that. What do you stand for? Let's not be against things, because that creates a fight. It's an oxymoron to fight for peace. I've been saying that for 15 years. I'm going to say it again. It's an oxymoron to fight for peace. It's an oxymoron to fight for peace. It really is. And if you're not in peace with your own life, what is it you're really giving it away? Because what I see, especially with the old timers, is they go out there, they do these protests, they feel really good, and then they tell stories of what it was for them during their time. And I think it's great that they do that, but that shouldn't be the reason that you do it. I think that we should have, the Veterans for Peace should have a wall of elders who have a story to tell. Let them post their story. Anybody could hear it, know what it was like during that time, because it matters. What it was for their time matters. What they did during that time matters. But that can't be. They're living in the past. Every time you go to a protest and have to tell that story, you're not moving forward. You're living in the past. How is Veterans for Peace going to move forward? How are we going to do that? I want to be there for that. I just don't want to fight with everybody to get there. That's why I haven't signed up anymore. That's why I'm just grateful that I'm allowed to have this time, to give you this point of view, because I have a lot of faith and trust that Veterans for Peace is going to be the people who move this nation forward. We're big enough. We're experienced enough. If we could just get over ourselves. We have to get over ourselves. Some humbleness has to happen. Some truth has to be told. And the best thing to do when you don't know what to do is just to listen, as hard as it might be. To be a woman in the military in the beginning of my time was a bunch of crap. And the sisters behind me was even worse. The best thing you can do is listen, not judge, not say this or that. Just listen. Actually open up your heart and say, hey, let me hear what that sister has to say. Let me hear what that brother has to say. You don't have to agree with it. You don't have to do anything but be a witness to somebody's experience. That might stop the fights, because we all want to be heard. The one thing that I know for sure is all of us want to know, at the end of our life, did what I do with my life matter? Did I matter? We all want that. All of us. I want to know that I mattered. I want to know that I made a difference. I want to know that something will be better for my grandchildren. Did I accomplish that? But if you're in your ego, then you don't think about that. You just think, well, I got to tell my story. I got to tell my story. And it makes me feel good to relive that. Okay, relive it, but you're in the past. What are we doing about today? What are we going to do about tomorrow? I saw something on your ad that said saving the planet. Planet doesn't need our help to be saved. Got news for you. That's how arrogant we are as human beings. When the planet gets tired of us, she'll get rid of us. She will save herself. She will save herself, because we are the ones who are poisoning her. There's nothing we need to do to save the planet except the right thing. The right thing. And to respect her as a living being, but we're not. So this whole idea that we're going to save the planet is spoken in arrogance. Just want you to know that. Because at the end of the day, for Indigenous people, that's our mother. That's our mother. everything that you have in your body, every mineral, every chemical, every water, everything in you is made from the mother. Everything. That is your mother too. Whether you see it or not, you come from that and you will return to that. That's why she is our mother, because if you look at what you're made of and go look at what the earth is made of, and you will find everything that the mother has, you have too. So she's trying to take care of us, but we're not taking care of her back. Don't be so arrogant to think you're going to save her. What we need to do is do something to save ourselves. You see, we can't even look at ourselves to save ourselves. We have to be looking at someone else, because if we look at ourselves, then we have to look at all the things that we have to fix for ourselves. It's a personal responsibility to be healthy. It's a personal responsibility to think clearly. It's a personal responsibility to feed your spirit. It's a personal responsibility to be responsible for your words, your actions. Your reactiveness is not my problem, nor should I have to tolerate it. It is your responsibility to pay attention to the kind of energy you bring into a room. It's nobody else. Nobody should have to be monitoring that for you. And if you don't know how to do it, then maybe you need to go home and figure out how to do it. Because that's a wound. That's a very big wound. If you can't even take care of your own emotions, if you can't control your own emotions, can nobody help you but you? And it doesn't take medication. What it takes is inner knowing. What it takes is a deep look inside. That's what it takes. And until you get to that spot, this first rule number 1 is always going to be there. But this historical thing that we're talking about, this historical thing, I just want to move forward a little bit about what we keep fighting for. Maybe somebody can post something that you feel like you've accomplished during all of this that's been long lasting. Let me put it that way. Long lasting. What has Veterans for Peace done that is long lasting? And it's not because you're not doing a good job. It's because you're fighting a system that put you in a place to keep fighting. There's no end to that. You think there's going to be an end to wars anywhere else? We're in a big war here. Do you think there's going to be an end to how we hurt other people in other countries? We hurt each other here. We hurt each other in Veterans for Peace. Why should we be appalled at what's happening out there? We are a reflection of the United States of America. We are. We are a reflection of that. And we like to say we're this and we're that, but we're a bunch of bullies. We're a bunch of bullies. And it's up to us to change individually how we treat ourselves and how we treat each other so that we don't have to be that. And that system doesn't have to guide us and tell us what we're supposed to be, what freedom should look like. Because I'll tell you the truth, none of you know what freedom is, unless you've been to another country where you can walk and sleep anywhere you want and nobody's going to tell you anything. And you're not on private property somewhere, and you're not paying taxes for living somewhere. That isn't freedom. That's a freedom they told you you had. They defined it for you. I have friends that live up in the mountains, off the grid. That's the closest freedom they can get to, because nobody runs it. And right now, that's a big fight, because all them fires are making them move, making them lose their land. See, the system's designed. When they want to take it from you, they will. There's no freedom. So the first thing you have to free is this, the ideas that they gave you, the concept that they gave you that was for their betterment, not yours. Free your mind. Free your mind from the colonizing thought that you were told, because you're more than that. You're bigger than that. You're more powerful than any system that exists. The problem is you don't know that. And you don't believe it if you do know that. Because that system is so big. Well, guess what? Every system can fall. And instead of fighting for little things like that, let's just think about a strategy that changes the game. Changes the game. Because that's what this is a game on our lives. They're playing with us. That's the truth. They are playing with us. And when they get tired of us, they will do away with you. Who are the people that are dying from these things? First, it was the elders. Then it was the people of color. Now it's children. It's things that cost the government money. Things that cost the government money. This is not a conspiracy. This is my observation. As a Native woman, we've had our history of how they did away with our people. So why would it surprise anybody that it would happen to other people? If there's too many people on Social Security, well, let's get rid of some of them. Because we borrow that Social Security money to pay for other things, even though we're not supposed to. Because that's what they do. You need to think bigger. Veterans for Peace isn't this myopic thing. It's not this one battle. It's not this one war. I honestly believe, know in my heart, because of all the experience that exists in Veterans for Peace, we have the capacity to change the system. And we don't have to call it a fight. We just call it a change. We don't have to fight with them. They want us to fight with them because that keeps us entertained to what they're really doing in the background. You know, I've been watching the news I never watched the news before, but I watch it beyond the news. I hear what they tell us, and then I go look at some other things. I don't know how many people do that, but it's important to read and know from other places, other countries, how they view us. You know, right now we're letting people die that we said we were going to take care of in another country, in Afghanistan. We're letting them do that. The president has not done nothing, and they've been talking about it for a month. Still nothing has happened. Those were our allies. I guess we don't want them for allies tomorrow because that's just another break in trust that the United States has done to yet another country. So why would you expect them to do anything for us? They have never kept their word. Our people can tell you that. You want to go fight about these little wars, go right ahead. One day you'll turn 60 and say, what did I accomplish? I'm 60, that's why I'm saying that. So it's time to wake up. It's time to think bigger. It's time to know what your potential really is. But if you're caught in the little fights over there that are big for you, not minimizing them, they matter. But I think there's one that if we could come to one understanding of like, yeah, let's do this. Let's move forward. Let's get through our injuries, because that's all we're doing is talking to each other about our injuries in harmful ways. That's all we're really doing. We're hurting and we don't know how to express it. So something triggers us and we express it and there it goes. So I'm just wondering, Garrett, I've been talking here for I don't even know how long. You have to tell me when to be quiet, but what your thoughts are on this. If anybody that is watching this has any comments, any questions, you know, there's a lot of prophecies happening right now that I could share if people are interested, but I'm just wondering what you're thinking right now in terms of what I've just shared.
It's
truthful.
A lot.
Be truthful.
Well,
oh, good.
I'm never going to tell you to be quiet. I'll tell you that right now. That's not something you will ever see me doing. I mean, that's a lot. You know, it's so hard. Like I'm just for y'all's knowledge. You know, I'm kind of sitting in today for Dan Kelly, who fell from a horse today, couldn't make it. we're hoping that he gets a fast recovery and that he seeks the help he needs. I understand stubbornness. I feel like I need to do everything on my own, or there's something wrong with me, and relying on even the people closest to me, like my partner and my family, is really difficult for me. So, these are conditions that I realize that I have because of really, the country and culture that I grew up in and was born to. I'm a born colonizer, and it's taken me a long time to be able to realize that without fighting it, without coming at it from a place of rejection and frustration because I didn't have a choice. Because it wasn't a decision I made in my life to just be born a colonizer. I was born in a settler culture and generations of settlers, and even my family roots aren't from the original settlers of this country. They're all immigrants, but this wasn't their land. And when I used to hear that, I used to reject it because it wasn't a choice that I made. But instead of rejecting it now, I look to see what I can do about it and how I can help and be part of the solution so I can stop that cycle. And I look at things like my want to do things without help and without a community as a flaw of that white supremacy that I grew up in. And there's so many ways in my life that manifests every day. And to be able to recognize it, acknowledge it, name it, and start to do something about it is a huge challenge. And a lot of emotions come up when I get challenged by that. And Ellie, it's a lot to take in, but I'm trying. And I think that there's a lot of members of this organization who are listening and trying to. And how do I live as a colonizer? What do I do? I always want to fix things. I want to, oh, it's injured. Let me come and, like, where's my tools so I can fix it. Right. How do I fix this?
Wow. There's ways to do a lot of things, but you have to be open to it first, and you have to hear what's hard, and you have to really learn to listen. And until we get to that place, your truth really, I think, is what I hear from other white people once they get that understanding. I've had friends, white friends, women friends, who stopped talking to me because they thought I was being mean. And 10 years later, they come back and said, Ellie, that was the best teaching I ever got. Because what you taught me was that my privilege was all over the place and removing everything that you worked for because I didn't like it. So that's really all I can hope for, is that people can come back and see, we're not asking people to fix things for us. We're not asking people to do anything for us. What we're asking people to do is to listen, to understand. I don't want anybody to fix anything for me. I have a community. I have a community of sisters. I have a community of veterans that can say, look, I need this done. I need some help. I feel crappy today. I need somebody to just give me a ride to the doctor, to the medicine place, someplace. I have that. But if you don't have that, I don't know. There's a different value system between the colonizer and indigenous people. I will tell you that. It's a very different value system. And you don't know that it's different because nobody's ever told you that it's different. And I'll give you a really good example. One is this. This society values youth. When you're young, they give you everything. Our society values elders because they have the wisdom and they can tell us how to, and we don't put them in our and homes that other people take care of them. It is our responsibility because they took care of us. My job isn't more important than my grandma. My job isn't more important than my mother or my father or my auntie whose kids aren't around for whatever reason. That's my family. And maybe I didn't get along with them. Doesn't matter. They did the best they could with what they knew at the time, is what I know. And they are my family. And I have lots of people who are not blood family that I would do that for too, and they know it. So that's one value. Another value is this. In our culture, you're defined by being rich by what you give away. In the other culture, it's by what you have to show off with. That's how we are defined by how rich we are, is by what we give away. It doesn't mean we give away what we don't have or we can't afford to give. So just think about those two things. So how could you understand how we think? You can't, because you don't even know that about us. So listening, having these conversations, this is really, really an old wound from my ancestors and from yours. And what happens is when you get called on for any kind of, white power of any kind, you take it personal. And that's not meant to be given to you personally. It's what you know, it's how you were raised, it's what your lineage is. So it's not for you to take personal, it's for you to take consideration and how we can make this different. That's all this is. Nobody's challenging your power, your authority, because that's the first thing that, oh my God, we're challenging authority, we're challenging power. We all have it. It's called personal power. But colonized people think it's power is power over another. So you all fail to see what personal power really looks like, because until you have power over, you don't feel like you have power. So these are some of just the things that we view things. And I think there should be a workshop for people who want to learn these things, to start a conversation. And as hard as it gets, be committed to not walk away from it. As much as anger, be committed to do some healing work for Veterans for Peace. Be committed to do this workshop for you guys, for your own sanity, for your own healing, because y'all can't give away what you don't got. You're all fighting in circles, fighting with each other, having a good show of, yeah, I protested. Okay, so what? The bigger fight is here at home. Do we want to fight that, or do we just want to work towards having a strategy to change it? Can't do it if you can't see clearly. Can't do it if the first thing that shows up is your anger. Because to me, Veterans for Peace is a place where people go to express their resentment, their anger, their betrayal, and not have to do anything about it. And so you can be a Veterans for Peace member for 20 years and not have to change anything because you feel like you're doing something. Now, it's only my personal point of view, and there may be some of you who disagree, and you can. You can. I am not going to argue with that. You have your point of view, and you're allowed to have that, and you're allowed to speak it. Not because I give you permission, but because you're a human being, and that's everybody's right. So maybe we should think and consider what and how human beings, because we stopped being human beings a long time ago. A long time ago. Animals show us better relationships and people. I went to the zoo, San Diego, took my grandson. There was a wolf and a tiger, baby wolf and a baby tiger. You know, a tiger from Africa in the same space, sleeping. Now, they should probably be enemies. They should probably want to kill each other. They should probably, but they're babies and they don't have their mamas there. So they have to rely on each other. And they do. And they were there both sleeping. So cute. It's like, why can't human beings do that? You know, I've seen cats and birds be friends. I mean, but we can't be friends. We can't trust each other. We can't believe each other. We can't, I mean, I don't know. We stopped being human beings a long time ago. And the world, the colonized world said we have to be human doings, because as long as you're doing something, you can't think, you can't feel, you're just do till you kill over and dead. Your mission is accomplished by their standards. Why do you want to keep doing that? Now, people could say I'm crazy, people could say whatever, but I've been watching this in the background. I'm 60 years old. I got out of the military at 45. You know, and Veterans for Peace hasn't moved forward. We're still stuck in wherever we're stuck in. There's some progress. I mean, we have, what I do see is younger people, more voice. I'm not saying nothing happens, but I'm saying there's so much more you all are capable of. There's so much more that y'all can do if we could just become that community. If we could become the nation of veterans for peace. Because Veterans for Peace has its own little cliques, separation. We do that to each other. Why can't we just be like, you know, I don't like to use the word tribe, because to me, in my time, it was demeaning. As far as I'm concerned, every reservation is a nation. They have their own laws, they have their own rules, they have their own everything. They are a nation. And our own language disempowers us. So we need to think about what we say, how we say it, and how we put it out there. I am not from a tribe. I am from a nation, a very powerful nation. My nation never lost a war. We might have lost battles, but we didn't lose a war. So I don't look at myself as number one. I'm not a minority veteran. I'm not from a tribe. And the first thing I am is a human being. But people have labeled me as this woman of color. Okay, so I can show how I'm not treated equal. Okay, I think everybody knows that. How do I change that paradigm? How can I be that woman that's not indigenous, that's not a different color? She's just a woman with a voice who wants the same thing for her grandchildren that everybody else wants for theirs. They gave us these labels to keep us fighting. They gave us these labels to keep pointing out what's not happening. Okay, we've done that. What happens if you remove the labels and realizing that the laws are still not designed for, if you're not a white male, realizing that, but not having to bring it up at every occurrence and making that an issue, but finding a solution within this circle so that it doesn't become an issue. That's the conversations that got to be had. That's my thought on that. I don't know how much time I have. I don't know if there's anything you want to share. I don't know if there's anybody, you know, I didn't have this really planned. I just sort of got stuck on that number one rule there that y'all have. And I just want people to realize that it's a 500-year-old problem. It was designed that way. The Constitution was not meant for the people in power. It was meant to keep us in agreement with each other, because they still break the rules. We're watching that happen in our face, and nothing happens because it's not a law. It's not a law. What laws are they breaking? But they should be held accountable for all the deaths that they've caused, for the lies that they've told. How come we're not talking about that? Why aren't they accountable for the lies that they're telling? Why aren't they accountable for the millions they're costing taxpayers for the stupid investigations that they're doing that prove nothing except waste our money that we pay for? Why aren't we looking at those things? Because those are the things that are going to make a system fall. We let them handle it. They're going to investigate Trump until he dies. That guy ain't going to jail. Why not? Why not? We're not holding anybody accountable to that Constitution, yet they want to hold us accountable when we say, I do, as soldiers. We go to jail. Plenty of our relatives in there in the prison because they didn't follow one of them rules. But look at up there, huh? That's what we need to be looking at, not what's they're fighting out there. They don't care. It's going to keep going. We have something bigger to heal in here. We have ourselves, we have our families, we have our community, and we have this nation. 4 things. 4 things that all take work. And yeah, it could be overwhelming, but let's start that conversation. That's how it starts. Let's agree to disagree. Let's agree just to listen. I don't know. I mean, I've been saying this for a decade now. I don't run around doing things anymore because people are stuck on, this or that one thing. When you don't realize that if you look at it all, none of this stuff is happening to white males. Okay? All the fights that we're having and the white males that it is happening to is because we volunteered. Right? We volunteered to become soldiers. Nobody forced you that. In Vietnam, maybe it was different, but nobody's forced you since then. Everything else that's happened are people of color, people who are poor, people who are sick, people who don't have the education to have the language to say what they mean or mean what they say because it's not available to them. What if we put all of those little things away and said, we're just one people and we're just going to look at if you're Black, if you're red, if you're white, if you're poor, if you're whatever, LGBT, I don't forget all the acronyms. If you're any of those and not a rich white guy, let's just put down what our personal battle is in our communities and say, okay, we're just going to change the rules here because we can. Let's just work on changing the format here. You see, I was told one of the prophecies is there could be a 5th world of peace. There could be. But in order for that to happen, the world that we're in had to fall. And it's falling. Now, the question is, are we ready to pick it up and make it that? Or are we going to let them design it for us again and make it worse? That's one of the prophecies. See, the other prophecy is 4 elements, 4 people are responsible for. White people are responsible for fire and the care of it. Yellow people are responsible for air. Black people are responsible for water. And the red and brown people are responsible for the earth. Pay attention to the planet. Where did Fukushima happen? Contamination of the air, Japan. What happened over there in New Orleans? The water, the floods. What's the majority of people that live there? Black people, right? The fires. Where are all the fires happening? Where all the richest people live, up in the mountains. People who own lots of homes and want to be away from, and actually they're not talking about that fire, they're talking about the nuclear blast. Who created that? Who's responsible for that? And our land, well, Native people, you see us out there, but until we understand that we all have to come together on all of these elements, because we can't live without any one of them. Yeah, I could fight for tomorrow's bombing. That's okay. I'm not saying you shouldn't. But when you don't have a planet anymore, none of this is going to matter. When we're, in my city, we're running out of water. They took away the tank. And California is now banned. The farmers are banned from using any kind of water from the river or lakes. So what does that mean? What does that mean? Is anybody paying attention to this? We're not, the planet's going to survive. These are the things that need care. The mother needs care. You know, I'm happy to offer a workshop down the line on some personal healing. I'm not, I don't want to take on any personal counseling or anything like that. Just a workshop. People can do what they want with it. I'm down for doing that down the line if that's something that people are interested in. I've actually written a book and I've never published it. And it's solely on that. And I don't know if I'll ever publish it, but I'm willing to share some of it. And the people that I have shared it with have found it to be very beneficial, especially white people. They really like it. I'm happy to share that at some point in some kind of workshop, but it requires people's commitment to show up, keep people's commitment to do the work. And it's not going to happen in one day. It's over a series of time. We didn't get to where we were in one day. We're not going to get better in one day. So that's what I wanted to share about responsibility in our personal lives for peace. Doesn't mean I don't get angry. Doesn't mean I don't, we're all a work in progress. All of us, we're at different levels, but to be able to recognize that and say, yeah, that's my next step. Because when it comes to peace, I don't know if there's ever a goal. It's just always the next step. And as long as we know that there's a next step and that's what we're moving towards individually and collectively, that fight doesn't have to be there. That fight does not have to be there. So that's what I wanted to share. I don't know if there's where we are on time or anything like that. Just let me know, Garrett.
We still have a half an hour.
Oh, great.
Apparently there are questions, but nobody's used the Q&A function. So I should have been reminding folks.
Okay.
It's really hard to find your questions in the chat. So there's a Q&A button that's kind of on PCs. It's at the bottom of the Zoom window. And when you scroll your cursor over, that Q&A button pops up, and you should be able to put your question in there, and then we could see it easier and it'll stay in the queue. So if folks actually do have some good questions, drop it in there. That way we don't have to look through this long scrolling chat of some really amazing comments, and try to pull out the questions. I do have one thing. You mentioned about the generational issues about, us valuing youth in the Western world, I suppose, and not the elders. You mentioned during the COVID-19 crisis that people being impacted and dying are folks that are also viewed as less worthwhile. It seems to be rooted in this kind of capitalist idea that if you can't participate and make money for somebody, make widgets for somebody, then you don't have value. And we see that within our homeless population. We see that in, many sectors of society where, we should have a moral obligation to take care of folks, and we fail. But I want to draw that into Veterans for Peace. Last night we had a long discussion in our social room chat, and a lot of people brought up that it seemed to be generational. A lot of young people angry at old people wanting to change and refocus our priorities and look at intersectionalism. And, a lot of the older folks, not everybody, even not the majority, but there are folks, and they happen to be older, that have some resistance, or are being accused of gaslighting or other instances. And here we are. I'm the younger and you're the older, and those positions are reversed. I feel like one of the strengths of Veterans for Peace could be the fact that we are intergenerational. Within our bylaws, any generation of veteran and even non-veteran could join and be part of this nation of Veterans for Peace. And we are failing at figuring out how to move this forward. And I wondered, as the creator of Turtle Women Rising and having your indigenous roots and connections, maybe there's some indigenous wisdom that we can take on to help guide us on how to deal with this like emergence of kind of intergenerational organizing.
Well, I can tell you that there used to be a system that we operated under, that this is how they did away with our people. Everybody had a role. The elders were there to teach the children, right? There was a ceremony for every time you moved into a different part of your life, from newborn to youth, teenager to mother to elder. There was a ceremony that acknowledged who you, we don't have that. You're 18, you got your driver's license, you're an adult, you're 65, you're a senior, you're going to an old folks home. That's all we got. So there is no honor in any of the positions. There is no guidance for each role. This is what you do. This is what you have to learn during this time. When you get to this age, the roles are going to change, and you're going to learn these things at this time. When you're an elder, you're going to sit here and watch and say, well, wait a minute, what are you doing over there? And not get offended because that elder that you don't know is telling you you're doing something wrong. Because you go to a community of Native people and there's a kid doing something shouldn't be doing. I don't care what elder, they're going to tell, hey, you better cut it out. And no mama's going to get mad and say, what are you doing to my kid? They're not going to do that. They're going to say, well, that elder told you should behave. We don't have that right away. Don't talk to my kid that way. There's no room for a teaching, for a learning from anybody else. There's just no room for it. So you really have to build a community, not just a meeting place, not just what are the roles? How are they going to move forward into this circle? Because you have that. You have your youth who are really talented, who have skills that I will never, I'm not going to acquire them at 6 years old because I don't want to. There's too much work for my brain. They can work the world in a way that I can't, right? You have these people who can make the movement, do things, what you do, coordinate, have these conversations, open doors for people to have these conversations. You have that. You have these other people who can just sort of, say, how can I support that? I can't do what you do, but I can do something else that supports you opening that door. And you have these guys who have all these stories to tell. Let them tell their stories. We're not here to run the show as elders. We're not. I'm not here to run a show. That's why I don't volunteer for nothing, because I volunteer to give away what I know. And what I know is because it's not because I learned it for myself. It was given to me. What I'm giving away was given to me. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to be no teacher. I'm trying to say, this is in my 60 years, this is the things that my elders told me. And I'd like to give that away before I leave this planet. To anybody who can respect it and actually, use it. So it's defining that for your community, what it is, instead of looking at, oh, well, they talk to me. Okay. No. Look, come on. Let's not be so arrogant that we don't have to cuss at each other. We don't have to, threaten each other, but we can speak the truth, and we don't have to yell at each other. Conversations are always hard when you're trying to make a change. But if you can't hear it, then you'll never be part of it. You're stuck in the past. And as long as you're stuck in the past, you cannot hear what the future looks like. And I cannot say what the future looks like because I'm not a young person. I don't have that vision. My future is right now, today. I don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. Right? So part of this is really building community, giving people roles that and understanding that they're all to be respected. All of them. And in Turtle Women Rising, I never did anything by vote. Majority didn't rule. We either all had to agree to it or it wasn't going to happen. Because our hearts had to be in it too. And that's the other thing. We think up here, but the rest of us is disconnected. In order for something to work, your heart has to be in it. Your mind has to be in it. Your body has to tell you it's the right thing to do. And it has to make you feel full in here, that what you're doing is a good thing. Now, if one of those things are in conflict, that's why people go to the voting thing. They don't got to go through all that. Oh, yes, no. So it's about building community, learning how to build a community that doesn't set up this triangle, the guy at the top and then the guys at the bottom. Right? If you think about when they speak over there in the White House, they're always talking about the 3 pillars. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that is? Because it's not a circle. When you're in a circle, everybody's engaged equally. When you're in a triangle, you have the guy on top and everybody else is trying to get to the top. And when you're trying to get to the top, excuse me, some people are willing to do anything to get there. And there's the first dilemma. Some people are willing to step on other people to get there. So that's one of the things that has to be removed. So these are just some thoughts, and then this is not my thought. This is how our communities used to work. You know, you had the people that were wise that you went to. You had the people who were the warriors. You had the people who took care of the children. You had the people who took care of the elders. You had the people who took care of the food. They all had a role. Everybody knew their role. And if you were better at this, even though you were female, but you were better at this than this, go do that. They don't talk about the women warriors that were part of the wars, but there were some. There were some women in those battles. You just don't know about them. They were warriors fighting. One of them was at what do you call that guy that got killed over there? I forgot I can't remember names, but South Dakota. Anyways, he was slaughtered. Custard. There was a woman there. Did you know that? There was a woman there. Yeah, so there's a lot of things that is untold by the people who wrote the history. So one of the things you have to unravel is that history. Look at, they're so afraid right now. Some states make it illegal to tell the truth in history. Why aren't we saying something about that? You want to stand up for people of color, you want to stand up for the truth. Why aren't we saying something about that? How is it that our children cannot learn the truth about history? Because it's pretty embarrassing of the kind of way that this country was built on. It's pretty shameful. And you don't want to know that story. You don't want your lineage to be part of that. It'd be better that Columbus discovered America rather than Columbus helped slaughter 60 million indigenous people. Which one sounds better? It's time to tell the truth. And it's time to sit with it. It's time to know who your ancestors were. If you don't know, go get a DNA. Go find out your lineage, because I guarantee you that every people had a way to operate a system within their own communities. Had a ceremony, had something. Not everybody was born with religion. Everybody has indigenous roots wherever you're from. Know what it is. Know who your people were. Know what wound you have to heal for yourself and your lineage. One of the things that I learned is that when I heal myself and all my whole anger, because all of my anger isn't mine. It was my dad's. It was Joaquin Murrieta's, the biggest bandit in California. It was all these lineage who were angry because they were people of color, and they would go to the governor and say, I need help. And the governor said, screw you. We can't help you because your skin is brown. That's a lineage of anger. And when I can work through this, I can tell my lineage, my DNA says, look, we don't need to hold this anymore. Let's let it go. I'm doing something right now that's gonna change what you had to endure, so that tomorrow, my kids, my grandchildren won't have to. That's really what our work is here. It's not to stop things, it's to create paths that are going to build a stronger tomorrow for our children, for our communities. And that includes All of us, not just some of us. But we're not thinking like that. We're thinking individually. And as long as we think individually, we're not going to get anywhere very quickly. But when we can think collectively and become one voice for one thing, and that Veterans for Peace is that one thing, because peace encompasses many things, not just not war. Peace encompasses equality, peace encompasses community, peace encompasses wellness, peace encompasses all of these things. All of these things, not just not war. This is the perfect organization for that. Because everything is covered under that one word. But you need to know what that one word means to every person and what they're willing to do to expand that one word into something that is a real movement, not just a title, but a real movement. So, were there any questions?
Well, there's kind of two kind of long ones from from Stan, and then Becky has something down here. So I'll read both of these from Stan, and you could choose like kind of how do you want to respond. How can folks support and be in solidarity with you, Truth Speaker Painted Crow? We need your wisdom and the blessings from the elders and ancestors. We need radical love and healing. We need to learn mutual aid and community restorative justice and healing from our First Nations comrades. Hurt people, and we must break the cycle of harm and violence. We are siblings in humanity. He also says, will VFP ever call for reparations for the harm communities domestically and globally? We need to be bolder, hold everybody accountable, especially ourselves.
Well, I think he has the answer. He gave it to me at the end. He has the answer. Huh? He has the answer. Why is he asking? Start with you. It can't, you have to plant a seed with you, and you have to water it, and it has to flourish, because then you have seeds to give away. I used to tell when Turtle Women Rising was, moving places here and there, I would say, I'm not here to do anything but plant some seeds. I'll be here for 4 days. I'm going to plant some seeds in here, in your spirit. Take what you want, leave what you don't. But if you don't water it, it's not going to grow anything. And that's not my responsibility. My responsibility as that elder is to plant those seeds. It's everybody else's responsibility to figure out how you're going to do that for yourself and your community. I'm not here to grow flowers. I'm here to plant seeds. You need to be that flower. So you got to, bottom line is this, whatever we need to do doesn't matter if you can't do it for yourself. If you can't do it for yourself, you have very little to give away. So find the peace within you, find the forgiveness within you, find the love within you, find your lineage and figure out what you need to do to help heal that so you don't have to be in therapy for 10 years. Because really that's what it comes down to, at least in colonized thinking. We go to ceremony, gets taken care of pretty quick. But you have to find you. And until you do that and you keep looking outside for the answers, you were born with all the answers you ever needed. Creator didn't make no mistakes. But colonized world said, oh, the answers are out here. And that's your ability to know what you're here to do is the answer you have to look for yourself. What is it you came here to do? And all of it is important. All of it. They do have a story about that. And the story, I don't know, maybe I've told it before, but Creator came and he says, I have this medicine for humans when they come, and it'll give them the authority and the right to choose their lives and their authority to know themselves and to know their own power. But I can't give it to them too early, because if I do, they're going to hurt themselves or hurt someone else. So the eagle said, I know what I can do. He called all the animals. Eagle said, oh, I could take it to the moon. They'll never find it there. Creator said, no, someday they'll get there and they might find it. And a fish said, when a salmon said, I can take it to the bottom of the ocean. Creator said, no, someday they'll go down to the bottom of the ocean and they might find it. And I think that's why we become elders and our wisdom kind of shows up because of this story, right? And so then the buffalo said, I know I could take it to the plains. They'll never find it there. Creator said, nope. They will find it there someday. And this little old grandma mole comes. She's a grandma, elder grandma mole. She goes, I got the perfect place for them. It'll be the last place they look. Creator said, where? The mole said, grandma mole said, put it inside them, because it's the last place they'll ever look. You see, so you're all born with the answers you need for your own healing, for your own wellness, for your own purpose. But you've been looking at the colonized world is telling you, oh, you make a great lawyer, you make a great social worker, you make all of these things. And because you want to fit in, you do these things. And you miss your calling sometimes. Some people are smart and say, nope, that's not what I want to do. I'm called to do this, and they go do it. It takes courage because they're breaking away from what the world says they're supposed to be. So just so that you know, all of you were born with everything you need for your life. If you can sit quiet and look inside yourself. I don't have any answers for you. I am here to help you remember these things. I am not here to teach anybody anything. I am here to help you remember that your best self is what you are meant to be, not what the world says you need to be. You know in your heart what you were meant to be. We get distracted. See, I always wanted to be a teacher. I never got to be one. And then one day, during the time I used to have women's circles, one of the women said, but Ellie, you are a teacher. I thought teacher, school, 5th grade, I never made it past junior high. And sometimes we do our work, but not in the way that we think we're supposed to, but we are doing it. And I don't consider myself a teacher. I consider myself somebody who helps you remember. That's all. I take no credit for any of it because Creator and my elders have given me what I can speak about now. And I was wise enough to look inside me when I was a young girl to know I did not want to be part of anything that was out there. And the only reason I joined the military is because I was forced. It's called, I call it an economic draft. I was forced to because I couldn't afford to take care for my children. I had to find a way to do it. So I joined the military. So we do have drafts, but because they don't call it what they call it, but we do have one. It's called an economic draft. We need to stop that from happening. Did I answer his question? I don't know.
Well, I think you answered a lot of questions. I've got a question from Becky. I'm going to let Becky ask it in person here. I'm going to allow Becky to talk. Becky, if you unmute yourself, you can go ahead and ask your question live.
Okay, thank you, Garrett. I just had multiple thoughts. Most everything you say really resonates with me, and I've been thinking a lot for a long time about power dynamics and how people tend to place the locus of power outside themselves and are constantly, upset and working against what the powerful are doing, when there's so many more of us and we I think we have immense power. I think it's hard for us to figure out how to use it or how to join it up in community, like you're saying. I was also thinking about the thing, like when you talk about people in your community, you refer to them as relatives, is that right? And what if in the VFP we adopted, like, I mean, they do it in Vietnam too, like they call each other family, like hello auntie or cousin or little brother, even though they're not actually blood related. I don't know if we could do that within VFP. It also has its own hierarchy, you know. So anyway, you've inspired me a lot. Last year, I have a little scribble that I keep on the side of my fridge of something you said about us having the DNA of God and being unlimited. And then I later I happened to see a talk from a Gandhian practitioner, an elder Indian man. And he was talking about nonviolence, the practice of nonviolence. And one thing he said that really struck me was, truth has great diversity and nonviolence is unity. In other words, we can come with different beliefs and ideas and even ideas about, you know, the most effective activism. But if we can come together in nonviolence, then, you know, we can still find ways to collaborate and get to know each other better and maybe, you know, have a chance of building something. Anyway, those are my thoughts. And I just, I'm so glad you're doing this workshop. I think it's fantastic.
Thank you. What I'll say about, you know, how VFP wants to work it out. In my community, I have plenty of nieces, plenty of nephews, plenty of people who call me auntie, because that's how our community works. And understanding that if I'm somebody's auntie, I have the authority to say something to them as well, bloodline or not. We're that kind of community. When I'm in a sweat lodge, I'm considered an elder, say my piece. There is high regard for elders if you're an elder, not elderly, okay? There are two different kinds of elders. And so if you see an elder that shows wisdom, you can certainly call them an elder. Age does not necessarily make you an elder. What you give back to community and how you give it back makes you that elder. That's with respect. You can be an elder and you can respect them because they're old, or you can respect them because they're actually helping you with some part of the circle, and you will have both. And so as long as you're clear on that, that's fine. I mean, I just had a talk with one of my elders who says, Ali, I need to do a workshop. He's like, I would need to get to a nonprofit that's not too busy. I said, well, what do you want to do? He goes, I need to go and talk to the native elders because they forgot how to be elders. I'm like, yeah, well, I'm in agreement with you there. He goes, some of them are elderly. So I'm not the only one on this thinking, you know, it's starting to hit the elders on the res now. That they're seeing that. So yeah, you can certainly call relatives however VFP wants to. I mean, people in my circle are my sisters, are my nieces, depending on our relationship. You know, I could be a grandma to somebody's kid. It just depends, not necessarily their age, but my relationship to them. So yeah, you could do that. And the other thing that I want to say is about language. I don't really like the word nonviolence because all it just, you know, it's very definite, does encompass all the responsibilities around that. And some people can say nonviolence means not physical. Some people could look at it to the extent of how we talk to each other or even how we look at each other. So it's not very clear to me. And understand that every word is a vibration. I don't like to use words that have a negative anything. Violence is still violence, or, you know. could be a practice for peace. Don't be a practice for nonviolence. I mean, think about that. I mean, let's not talk about what we don't want, because we've been doing that for all our lives. Let's talk about what we do want. Let's focus on that language, not what we don't want. Because what you speak about most is what you create most. What you put your energy into the most is what will show up for you the most. And if you're always in a fight, well, you're right. You're always in a fight because that's what you call it. The universe is very clear on what you speak. Although you might think you are clear with the universe literally takes what you say. And the word no and non really doesn't affect the universe, honestly. You could say nonviolence, the universe might not hear the non, or the brain won't either. When they say don't drink and drive, your brain hears drink and drive. It's like studies been shown around that kind of stuff. So language is really important, you know, and I say that because English was my second language. And what you speak, you really do create. What you manifest comes from the vibration of your words. They call cursing that reason, you know, saying bad words, cursing for a reason, because you're throwing a curse on somebody literally when you do that. That's why they call it cursing. So these old thinkings of how words were used are no longer in existence. So we just use words because they're there, not because we understand the power of the word. When they're talking about the power of the word, a lot of people refer to the Bible. I'm not referring to no Bible. I'm referring to the power of the word. Any word you say, it matters. The energy of vibration. If you're putting that word out in anger, you're throwing darts at people into the universe, and they're feeling it, and they don't know. Oh God, I have a headache. Oh God, I can't breathe. When you throw a dart at somebody, it passes that person into the atmosphere. This is stuff that our people know, you know, and people who understand this move through the world very easily when you understand this, because you're not letting that judgment, you're not letting arrows come back at you. You're knowing how to take care of that for yourself. So I just want to say that words are important. It's a whole nother discussion, because if we think about it, we're all vibration, all of us. That's all we really are, is a vibration. So what makes you think music, words, all of those things aren't going to affect you? You're part of that big vibration. You have to think this way in order to move forward. You know, it's not just the things that you see and feel that are going to help us move forward. It's the unknown. The unknown will get us through faster than the known, because the known is what's put and given to us to work with. And we have forgotten our own power and our own strength and our own knowing to say, I don't need this. There's other things that are in the unknown that I have never looked at that I can do, that we can do collectively. You have to think bigger than just your body, bigger than just your mind. Your spirit is connected to mind. Your spirit is connected to everybody else is here, whether you see them or not. That's what makes us one. It's that energy of vibration. That's what makes us come together. It's when we can get in alignment with that. That's why drum's so powerful, because when you're in a drum, when there's a drum in your room and everybody's in it, everybody's heart is beating exactly the same. Scientifically proven. And when you do that and you have a ceremony and you bring the drum in and you get everybody settled down, play a song or two, now you can have a conversation. You know why? Because everybody's heartbeat is beating the same. This is medicine. These are the things we need. that all of the people in Veterans for Peace have something to offer like that from your lineage, if you know your lineage. It's not just Native people, Indigenous people all over have ways. Have ways. White people, Indigenous people, the witch burnings, those were people of the earth. Those were women of the earth. They knew those ways. They're not any different from Native people. Those were white women who were medicine people who got burned because they knew something that the white male did not want them to have. So think about your own wounds and how people were treated in Europe like crap. They forgot they were not treated like human beings when they were in Europe. And so when they came over here, they forgot they were human and they treated us like they were treated. You know, Black people weren't the only slaves. We had indentured slaves. We had Native people that were slaves. They got sold to indentured slaves who came to work for 10 years, probably died before they ever got their freedom. There's a lot of slavery happening that we're not talking about all of those things. We all have been wounded by the same things. But if you don't know your history, you can't talk about it. And it's not to make yours better than your wounds bigger or worse than ours. It's to say, we've all had this human experience. We've all had this human wound. You know, it hurts. I don't care if it's 100 years old, it hurts. And sometimes white people are hurting, but they don't even know why, because they don't know their lineage. How many people were killed because they couldn't agree with some religion somewhere? Those are your ancestors. Don't disregard them. Think about that. The job is so much bigger than just going there to protest. Heal yourself. Be responsible for your own peace. Creator lives in you. But you can't be quiet enough and you're letting all the dialogue from all this crap out here not let you find yourself. Well, then you're going to just go in circles like we've been doing for 500 years. I'm done. I'm going to leave the planet, 20 years if I'm lucky. I'm hoping at least 20 years and that I'll still have my sanity in those 20 years. But if I'm not, dang it, guys, get a clue. Get a clue. I'm not claiming to know anything. I'm telling you what was told to me. I'm telling you a historical thing that doesn't get talked about. There's nothing wise in my words. It's just history. Go back and read the real history. Go back and read your own history. That will tell you what your job is. That will tell you what you need to heal, not just for your present day, but for your past. Because we carry that in our DNA. But my first thing is just listen to each other. Conversations can be challenging, can hurt, can be ego busting, because that's mostly what it is. Get over yourselves. Sit through the hard stuff. If you really want to make a difference, start with yourself. Otherwise, you're just wasting time. If you can't value who you are as a human being, why should I believe you value any other human being? It's just a cause that keeps you in your anger, gives you permission to not have to move forward in your own life. That's all that is. It becomes that. And that's the truth. And I can say it because I did it too. I did it too. It was the easier thing to do than to stop and look inside myself. The stroke made me do that. Like I said, when you don't listen to your body, you start to get ill. My anger was not an anger, it was a freaking rage that I refused to acknowledge. The shame that I refused to talk about unless I was in anger. How dare they do this to me? That was the plan all along. I get mad. I'll just take the medicine and learn from it. And oh, okay, this is how you operate. I'm going to learn from that because I'm going to take how you guys operate and I'm going to take it over here and I'm going to modify it to make it work. And that's what I've done. People think I'm very good at systems, getting through them, getting around things, and I am. I help people get a lot of benefits they're told they're not eligible for. You know why? Because I studied systems. I studied systems. Oh, I'm not eligible for this. The heck, you're not. Let me show you how to do it. And that's not being out of integrity. It's saying this is what I deserve. And the rules are made so you can tell me why I can't have something. Well, I'm here to show you that I can. I don't agree with your rule. And I'm not going to fight with you about it. I'm just going to go around you. And it can be done. Because I've been doing it for lots of people in the last 20 years of my life. People who thought they couldn't get things, they have them. Not because I was trying to get even with any system, but because they deserved it, because they benefited from them to help them have a better life for themselves and their children. They weren't getting over on anybody. The rules are made for us to say, for them to say no to us. Anybody been to a veteran advocate and the first thing they tell you is why you can't do something? I don't go to veteran. And when I have to, I tell them, I know I have to go through this, but I know you're only here to tell me why I can't do something. So I'm just going through the chain because I don't want you to do anything. I just want you to give me this information so that I can go to the next person because you can't help me. You have no authority to help me. They put you in place there to discourage me from following through with my complaint. That's what they've done. And that's what they do to us in all systems. So you have to learn how to work through them and around them. And I am proud of that. I am proud that I can help be of service to people who think they can't be eligible for something when I know that they are. And if they're not eligible, I will tell them, no, you're really not eligible. We can't do this. But if you are, and they're telling you no, that's my challenge. That's what I do anymore, to be of service to people as I help them. I help them get their claims up. I help them with a lot of things that they think they can't do or they're not eligible for. So is there any other questions? I don't know how much time I have. You tell me if there's anything else to be said, shared, if anybody wants to share anything.
Well, you've given us a lot to digest and reflect on, and we're over time. This has been a tremendous gift, and thank you for challenging us. And we can only get better from here, or like you said, this isn't worth doing. And I think many of us are going to continue to work on building the kind of community that we all deserve, and it's amazing what you just told us. So this is going to be recorded. It's going to be available for all the folks who didn't see it. It's been an intimate kind of group here tonight. And, I know a lot of folks are going to kind of be able to watch this later. And I'm going to, I think, have to watch it again just as somebody who's, you just hear these lessons over and over again. So, you served 22 years in the U.S. military, retired as an E7, and spent the last 15 years decolonizing yourself. And I've just begun that journey, and I appreciate you walking before me. I'm gonna follow your path, and I appreciate you telling me where to step and where not to step, and I'm gonna try to listen as carefully as I can. So thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for allowing me to share this point of view. And